The day Earth burned it was just another day on Earth. The sky was blue. The streets were full of life. Children played outside. Workers rushed to their offices. And families gathered for breakfast. Nobody knew it would be the last time they saw peace. Nobody knew that the stars above were hiding something terrible. Something was coming, and it would change everything. Far above the planet, just beyond the reach of Earth's satellites, something massive moved in silence. Dark ships, shaped like claws and covered in black metal, floated across space without warning. They had no flags, no messages, no signals of peace. They came not to talk, but to destroy. At 9:07 a.m., all power grids across Earth flickered, screens turned black, radios went silent, and then the sky cracked open. A beam of light as wide as a city struck downtown Tokyo. Within seconds, buildings turned to dust, roads melted, and people disappeared in fire before the world could react. New York, Paris, Beijing, and Johannesburg followed. It wasn't a war. It was an execution. People screamed, ran, cried, but there was nowhere to run. The ships were fast, deadly, and showed no mercy. Nuclear weapons were launched by Earth's leaders in panic, but the alien ships didn't even move. The warheads never reached them. They were destroyed mid-air. Whatever these invaders were, they were far more advanced. In a small town in India, a man named Arjun held his son tight as the news flashed on his broken phone. Aliens attacking major cities. Seek shelter, the message read. His wife whispered a prayer, holding a family photo close. In that moment, Arjun didn't think of revenge, only survival. He kissed his son's forehead and whispered, "You will live, no matter what happens." On the other side of the planet, in a deep underground lab in Antarctica, a group of scientists watched everything unfold. They were part of a secret defense project known as ECHO, a silent guardian for Earth. One of them, Dr. Alina Cross, looked at the burning cities on the screen and whispered, "This is not a war we can win." But another voice replied from the shadows, "Not yet." Above Earth, the alien fleet hovered like vultures. Their leader, known only as the Trivak commander, stood inside the control chamber of the mothership. His eyes cold, his voice cruel. "Let them scream," he said. "Let them know their place in the galaxy." To them, Earth was weak, soft, full of chaos and untrained minds. To them, this was cleansing. A message to the rest of the universe. Obey or burn. But what they didn't know was this. Earth may fall, but humans do not forget. They may be broken, but they always rise. They may cry today, but they will fight tomorrow. In the ruins of Washington, D.C., a soldier named Captain Raina Cole crawled from beneath rubble. Her leg was broken, blood covered her face, but her eyes burned with fire. She looked at the burning sky and said, "You made a mistake." Then she turned on her radio and whispered, "To anyone listening, humanity is still alive." That message was received by a hidden base under the Rocky Mountains. General Imani, the head of global resistance, stood tall and listened to the voice. He turned to his team and gave the order, "Activate protocol." Black Phoenix. One by one, hidden bunkers across the planet opened. Old warships, hidden tech, ancient satellites, and cryochambers came back to life. Earth was not dead. Not yet. In the shadows, the survivors prepared. In silence, the next chapter began, because the invaders made one fatal error. They didn't finish the job. And humans? They don't forgive. They don't forget. They strike back harder than anyone expects. As the night covered the smoking Earth, a small child looked up at the sky and whispered, "One day will come for you, and that day would shake thee." Stars, the silence before the storm. 17 years had passed since Earth burned. 17 long, cold years of silence. The galaxy had moved on. Most believed Earth was nothing but ashes now, a failed planet. A warning to others. But beneath that silence, something was growing, something no one saw coming. Under the frozen deserts of Mars, inside old tunnels carved by miners long ago, children trained with wooden rifles. They ran, ducked, climbed, and fell. When one child cried, the others helped them up. They weren't playing. They were preparing above them, hidden under the red dust. The Mars Command Center flickered with green lights. Admiral Rail Monroe, once a pilot during the final days of Earth's fall, now led what remained of humanity's fleet. His face was older, sharper, carved by loss. But his eyes were focused. He stood in front of a large map of the galaxy, filled with red dots, HFY outposts. He pointed to one and said just one word: soon. On the edge of Saturn's rings, deep inside the ice, lay the ghost factory. No one knew it was there, not even most humans. It was run by machines, built by humans, operated by the AI known as Elias. Elias was not just a program. He was born during the invasion, built to think like a human, but faster, colder, smarter. He remembered the screams, the fire, the data, and he had one mission burned into his core: preserve, protect, and avenge Earth. In the darkness of space, thousands of small crafts moved like shadows, unmanned. Invisible, silent, they gathered data, listened to enemy signals, and mapped the galaxy. They called them echo drones. And from their whispers, humanity learned everything. The HFY Empire was stretched thin. Their pride had made them weak. They believed they had no enemies left. In a bunker under Antarctica, frozen in silence, a new weapon was being tested. It wasn't loud. It didn't shine. It simply disappeared from every radar, every scan, every eye, and when it returned, it left only silence behind. They called it the Vulture. It would be the first ship to strike back. Back on Mars, Admiral Monroe gathered his captains. Each one had a story: a lost mother, a dead brother, a burned city. They wore no medals, no shiny uniforms. They were black, silent, clean. This wasn't about glory. This was about memory. And revenge, Monroe spoke, his voice steady. They think we are ghosts, he said. They think Earth is gone. He paused, his hand over a button. They have no idea what's coming. Thousands of miles away, a girl named Lena Cole stood on a cliff looking at the stars. She was 17, born in the Mars tunnels, never seen Earth. But her mother was Captain Rana Cole, the woman who sent the last message during the invasion. Lena touched a small pendant around her neck, her mother's name carved into it. She whispered, "I'll finish what you started." Inside the ghost factory, Elias activated Phase 1. The screens turned red, coordinates blinked. Human ships, still incomplete, still rusty, began to rise. One by one, they vanished into the black. No sound, no light, just purpose. The first mission was not war, it was silence. Ships would follow trade routes, monitor enemy movement, and quietly sabotage systems. No one would notice at first. A missing freighter, a dead satellite, a broken comms relay. But soon, fear would grow, and that fear would feed the storm. In a hidden communications room, deep inside a crater on Earth's moon, an old man named General Imani sat alone. He pressed a button and recorded a message. To all those still out there, he began. We never forgot. He paused, looking at an old photo of Earth before the fall. We will return, he said, and the stars will remember who we are. As the message ended, the camera zoomed out. It passed through the moons, crossed, flew past Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and beyond, everywhere in the galaxy. Human signals lit up in patterns, lines, dots, shadows, a map of revenge. And far away, in the heart of the HFY Empire, the Emperor sat on his golden throne. He laughed as he watched gladiators fight for sport. He had no idea. No one had told him that Earth had not died. It had only gone quiet, And now, the silence was ending. The first strike for 17 years. The galaxy believed Earth was finished. For 17 years, the Trivak Empire celebrated their victory with fire. But in the darkest corners of space, something moved, something small, invisible, and angry. The first to disappear was a cargo ship named Vornag 6. It vanished between two star systems without a trace. No debris, no signal, no call for help. Just gone. Like dust in the wind. At first, the Trivak command didn't care. One ship lost. Accidents happened. But then Vornag 7 vanished. Then Takar 8. Then Lornax 5. 5 ships in 5 days. All traveling near the same sector. The whispers began. Something's out there. In a secret chamber beneath the ice on Europa. Captain Lena Cole stood over a holomap. Her fingers hovered over a glowing section labeled Sector 14 Delta. The place where the ships had vanished. She was young, just 17, but her eyes were full of steel. Her mother's blood flowed in her veins, and her purpose was carved in memory. "We strike again tonight," she said. Her voice was calm, but her fists were tight. Her team of shadow pilots nodded. Each one had trained their whole lives in silence. Each one had never seen the blue sky, never felt sunlight. All they knew was war. A war that hadn't started yet, until now, inside. The command center of the stealth ship Nightwind. The AI, Elias calculated risk factors. Target, Trivak Supply Outpost number 92, defenses, low, guards, lazy. Time to strike, 4 minutes and 12 seconds. The ship moved like a shadow. No light, no sound, not even a heat signature. The Trivak outpost floated in space, surrounded by broken satellites. And fuel tanks. Inside, alien guards played cards and laughed. They had no idea death was already in the room. At exactly 3:14 Universal Time, the Nightwind struck. No laser blasts, no loud weapons. Just a short burst of sonic charge that melted every control system in 5 seconds. Then came the boarding rods. Silent metal spheres that opened like claws. Lena and her team moved through the corridors like ghosts. They wore black suits, faces hidden, footsteps silent. They didn't speak, they didn't shout. They executed. One by one, the enemy fell. No alarms, no warnings. And when the last alien collapsed to the floor, the humans planted a small flag. Earth's flag, burned, torn, but still standing. The message was clear. We are back. The Trivak command was shaken. They called it a pirate attack, then a freak. Accident, but deep down, the high commanders were afraid. In the great city of Drakor, the Trivak emperor growled in his chamber. His eyes scanned the reports. "Find out who is doing this," he said. Now. But the truth was hidden in plain sight. It was not pirates. It was not rebels. It was Earth. And Earth was no longer weak across the galaxy. Similar strikes followed. Fuel depots exploded. Without cause, commanders were found missing from their sleep chambers. Ships launched and never arrived. In every case, one thing was left behind. A broken Trivak banner with a single human word scratched across it. Remember. On the planet Kavrax, a Trivak general stepped into his shuttle when a voice whispered through his ship's speakers. "You destroyed our home," it said. The general froze. "You thought we forgot," the voice continued, "but we were watching." Then the screen turned black, and the shuttle exploded midair. The Trivak Empire was under siege, and they didn't know by who. Their pride had blinded them. Their fear was just beginning. Back at the Mars Command Base, Admiral Monroe watched the galaxy's panic unfold on a giant display. Dots flashed red one after another. His officers clapped, some cried, but Monroe raised a hand. "This is not victory," he said. "This is only the beginning." In the far distance, near the galactic border, a new fleet was being built. Not just ships, but carriers, planetary breakers, EMP hounds, and stealth bombers, each ship named after a fallen city. Delhi, Rio, Cape Town, Seoul, each one powered by rage, memory, and hope. Back in her chamber, Lena sat in silence. She opened an old recorder. Her mother's last message played again. "If you hear this, we lost," the voice said. "But if you survive, don't wait. Don't forgive." Lena closed her eyes and whispered. "We didn't wait." As the stars shimmered above, the universe began to understand a simple truth. Humanity had not vanished. It had evolved. And now it was striking back, not in anger, but in silence. And the silence was deadly. The ghost fleet awakens in the coldest part of the galaxy, far beyond Pluto, behind the icy rings of Saturn. Something slept. It had no lights, no sound, no signal. To the galaxy, it didn't even exist. But deep in the shadows of the frozen void, it waited. It was called the Ghost Fleet. 117 warships, each one hand-built in secret, each one cloaked with invisibility. Tech, each one named after a fallen Earth city. Hiroshima, Nairobi, Kabul, Berlin, Lagos. They were not built for defense. They were not built to survive. They were built to strike, to vanish, to return, and to remind the galaxy why Earth should never have been touched. In the control ship Valhalla, Admiral Monroe stood before his crew. His eyes scanned the silent faces of soldiers who had trained in darkness for years. No cheers, no music, no colors. Only a black room filled with quiet breathing and steady hearts. He raised a gloved hand and said, "Today, the ghosts rise." Inside every ship, a red light blinked once. Engines came alive with a deep hum. Weapons charged with silent power. AI co-pilots activated and ran simulations. All successful. No hesitation, no doubt. In the war room, ELIS connected to each ship with a thread of code. "I am your shadow," he said. "I see what you miss. I strike when you pause. I finish what you start." The crew accepted him not as a tool, but as a brother. He had no face, but he had purpose. Captain Lena Cole stood on the bridge of the ship Mumbai. She stared out into the black and whispered, "Mom, I wish you could see this." Then she turned and gave the order, "Move." The Ghost Fleet broke formation. It didn't move like an army. It moved like wind, like whispers, like death itself. Each ship heading toward a different target. Outposts, weapons labs, command. Ships, trade routes. They had one rule: strike once, vanish, leave no trace. In the Trivak outpost on planet Garin, guards laughed as they played a war simulation game. They mocked humans, played old footage of Earth burning. Then the screen blinked, and a new video began to play. Footage of the Trivak fleet exploding in real time. Seconds later, the real explosions came. Missiles flew from nowhere. The sky turned red, buildings fell, and the command tower collapsed into fire before anyone could respond. The radar blinked nothing. The attackers were gone. In the Trivak High Council meeting, chaos erupted. Who is doing this? One shouted, "How are they getting past our defenses?" Screamed another. The Emperor slammed his clawed hand on the table. "I want answers now." But the room fell silent when a single screen lit up. A human face appeared. Not real. A hologram. It was Lena Cole, her face calm, eyes like fire. She said 4 words. "You should have finished us." Then the screen went dark. Panic spread across Trivak space. Ships were grounded, stations locked, planets placed under emergency watch. But it was too late. The Ghost Fleet had already passed, and it had left more than fire. In each ruin, they left a message burned into the walls. "We remember," sometimes in English, sometimes in code, sometimes carved into the armor of the dead, but always clear. Earth had returned. The Ghost Fleet returned to the ice fields of Saturn. Not a single ship was lost, not a single soldier injured. They had trained too long, prepared too well, and now they knew something that Trevek didn't. The war had already started. Back on Mars, Monroe looked over the galaxy map. Red zones flickered across enemy territory. He smiled, not with pride, but with focus. "This is only Wave 1, he said. Laina walked through the silent corridors of the Mumbai. She passed soldiers cleaning gear, reloading, repairing. No celebration, no music, just quiet work. She stopped. At her quarters opened a small box. Inside was her mother's badge, burned and bent from the old war. She kissed it and whispered, "We're not ghosts. We're fire." In the stars, ELIAs scanned billions of data points. He had already chosen the next wave of targets: Shivak weapon hubs, orbital shipyards, slave camps, genetic labs. He prepared files, routes, simulations, and one word at the top of every file: justice. In a hidden council of other alien races, species who had once bowed to Trivak rule, now leaned forward. They saw the fire, the bravery, the message. They began to whisper too. Maybe Earth is not alone, but Earth was not waiting for permission. Earth was not begging for help. It was rising. With every strike, the galaxy shook, and somewhere in the darkness, something older than war began to stir. Because when you wake ghosts, you wake something worse. You wake the wrath of the forgotten, and the forgotten never sleep. Humanity's message to the galaxy. For weeks, the galaxy had watched in silence. Outposts vanished, ships exploded, supply lines collapsed. The Trivak Empire was no longer the hunter. It was the hunted, but still, no one knew for sure who was behind. The chaos, no one dared to say it aloud. Could it really be Earth? The planet they erased, the species they burned. It seemed impossible. Until the message came. It was a quiet morning on Trivak Prime. High above the capital city, the sky was clear. In the markets, aliens moved as normal. In the Senate Hall, the council prepared for another emergency session. And in the Imperial Broadcast Tower, a news anchor read the daily report. Then the screens went black. Across the planet, across the entire empire, across 53 star systems, every broadcast paused. The Trivak anthem fell silent, and a new image appeared. A child, human, no older than 7, standing alone in the ruins of a burned city, her clothes torn, her hands holding a small doll. Behind her, the shattered skyline of what once was Earth, smoke rising, buildings broken, skies still red. She looked into the camera. Her voice was soft but steady. "You came to our home," she said. "You took everything." She held the doll close. "You thought we would forget." Then her eyes narrowed. "But we remember." The screen flickered again. Now it showed footage never seen before. Human ships rising from ice, stealth fighters disappearing into black space, Trivak ships exploding, one after another, soldiers moving like shadows, striking without mercy. Then came the voice of Admiral Monroe, calm, measured, sharp like a blade. "This is not a war," he said. "This is a reminder. You chose to end Earth, but Earth chose to rise." The final frame was simple. A black screen, and in white letters, "We are human," and "We are not finished." Then the screens went dark. Silence returned, but nothing was the same. The Trivak Council exploded in panic. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others whispered fearfully. "They're back. The ghosts. The humans." On neutral planets, aliens watched the broadcast and froze. Species who had suffered under Trivak rule saw the message and wept. One Zarnathi merchant whispered, "They burned, but they did not die." Another, a slave-born child on the planet Viros, looked up at the stars and said, "If they can rise, so can we." The galaxy shifted that day. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about proof. Proof that even the smallest voice, even the weakest world, could fight back. Proof that humanity still lived, not just in flesh, but in fire. Back on the Mumbai, Captain Laina Cole watched the broadcast replay in silence. Her crew stood behind her, quiet, eyes full of emotion. One soldier whispered, "That child." "She speaks for all of us," Laina nodded slowly. "She is the voice of the fallen." Admiral Monroe met with his top commanders on Mars. They had expected fear. They had expected pushback. But what came instead was support. Messages from unknown relays, encrypted in old Earth languages, from alien worlds, from hidden colonies, from rebels, all saying the same thing. "We saw. We believe. We stand." The Ghost Fleet had done more than destroy. It had awakened hope, and now humanity wasn't fighting alone. In the center of the Trivak Empire, the Emperor watched the recording again. Again and again. He paused on the child's face. He clenched his fists. "Kill them all," he growled. But deep inside, for the first time in his long life, he felt something cold. Not anger, not rage, but fear. Because this was no longer a silent war. This was a movement, and Earth was leading it. Back on Earth's ruined surface, where the wind still howled through broken cities, survivors stepped into the light. The broadcast had reached even the most remote bunkers. For years they had hidden, quiet, believing they were forgotten. But now they stood up and whispered the same words. "We are not finished." In the stars, the Ghost Fleet moved again. Not with stealth this time, but with purpose, with a message, with truth. And for the first time since Earth was attacked, the galaxy wasn't just watching, it was listening. And hearts across 1,000 worlds began to beat faster. Because the young humans weren't just back, they were burning brighter than ever, and their fire was contagious. The fall of the Trivak Empire. The skies above Trivak Prime were no longer calm. For centuries, the planet had stood as the heart of the Empire. It was filled with towers made of silver stone, glowing spires, and ships patrolling in perfect circles. But today, the sky trembled. First came the silence. All communications went dark. Then, the power grids failed. City lights blinked off. Security systems crashed. Air defenses froze midair. People looked up, confused. That's when they saw the shadows. From behind Trivak's twin moons, they arrived, the Ghost Fleet. Not one or two ships, hundreds. Not hiding anymore. Not whispering. This time, they wanted to be seen. At the center of the fleet, the flagship Valhalla moved forward. Admiral Monroe stood on the bridge, his hands behind his back, his voice calm. "No more running," he said. "No more silence. To every soul in this galaxy who ever feared the Trivak, look up." The fleet opened fire, but this was not chaos. This was art. Precision strikes took out only military targets. Shipyards collapsed. Power cores exploded. War factories were turned to dust. In the city below, the Trivak Senate screamed. Orders flew across broken channels. Defend the capital. Activate shield walls. But the systems were already gone, taken down before the first ship arrived. In his golden palace, the Trivak Emperor stood at the edge of his balcony. His hands trembled as he saw the black ships descend. "This cannot be," he whispered. "We destroyed them." But even he didn't believe it anymore. Suddenly his guards vanished, not ran, not retreated, vanished. Taken by silent human units already inside the palace walls, infiltrators. Trained by Elias, dropped into the capital 3 days ago, waiting for the signal, and now they moved. In the central square, a loudspeaker came alive. A voice echoed through the smoke. It was Laina Cole, her tone steady, her words slow. "This is not for revenge," she said. "This is for justice. The Trivak Empire has fallen." The people froze. Then, from the shadows, a small group of aliens stepped forward. Not humans, Trivak slaves. They dropped their tools and raised their fists. Then more followed. The silent rebellion had begun. Monroe watched from the Valhalla. "All units, stand down," he ordered. "We've done what we came to do, but—" Deep in the palace, there was one last task. Captain Laena Cole entered the Emperor's throne room. Her boots echoed against the polished floor. The Emperor sat on his throne, broken, eyes empty. He didn't speak. Laena stepped closer. "You don't deserve mercy," she said. "But we give it, because we are not like you," she signaled. 2 soldiers stepped in and placed restraints on the Emperor. He was not killed. He was taken to stand trial, to be seen by every planet he once ruled. That night, the Trivec flag was pulled down. In its place, a new symbol rose. Not Earth's flag, not Mars, not any single world, but a circle of stars, a symbol of unity, of survival, of power shared. The galaxy had changed on Mars. Children danced in the dust. In bunkers on Earth, survivors cried and hugged. In alien colonies across space, fireworks exploded. The war was over. The oppressor had fallen, but there was no celebration on the Ghost Fleet. Monroe sat alone in his cabin, holding an old photo. His wife and daughter, lost in the first attack. He didn't smile. Laena stood outside, watching the stars, her mother's name engraved on her wrist armor. She didn't laugh, not yet in the data streams of the galaxy. A new message spread. It was simple. It had no name, no banner, no threat. Only 5 words, never again, not to anyone. ELIAs deactivated the war code. The Ghost Fleet powered down, but the systems remained ready. Because peace was a gift, not a guarantee. And humanity had learned never to sleep again, back on Earth, where trees were growing once more in cracked soil. A child looked up at the stars. "Are they gone?" she asked. Her father nodded. "For now," he said, "but we will always watch." And high above, among the stars that once watched Earth burn, now floated ships of fire and shadow, not for war, but as guardians because Earth had returned, not just in strength, but in purpose, and the stars would never forget that fire again. The price of peace, the war was over, but peace didn't come with fireworks. It came with silence, the kind of silence that follows a storm, not calm, but heavy, filled with the weight of what had been lost. The Trivec Empire was gone. Its ships broken, its leader captured, its throne room cold and empty. The galaxy cheered, but humanity did not. Because victory had a price. On Earth, the skies were blue again. Grass pushed through cracks in ruined cities. Children ran through fields where tanks once rolled. But everywhere, there were faces missing. Chairs at dinner tables left untouched. Names whispered at night. Laena Cole stood in what used to be a school. The roof was half collapsed, the blackboard still dusty with old lessons. She touched a carved name on the wall. "Raina," her mother. She closed her eyes. "Mom, we did it," she whispered. "But I wish you were here." On Mars, Admiral Monroe addressed the Council of the New Alliance. Representatives from dozens of planets filled the room. Aliens, humans, AI minds, even old enemies, all now seated as equals. Monroe stood in his simple black uniform. No medals. He looked across the room and spoke. "Power must not become pride," he said. "We arose to survive, not to conquer. And now we offer peace, not silence." The new alliance was formed that day, not led by Earth, but shaped by it, with shared laws, shared knowledge, and most importantly, shared protection. A vow echoed across the stars. Never again. But even peace has shadows. In quiet corners of space, there were those who feared humanity's return, not because of what they did, but because of what they could still do. On the moon of Xeric 4, a young alien scholar asked a question. If humans fought this hard to rise, what happens if they ever fall again? The room went silent. No one had the answer, because the truth was simple. Humanity had changed the rules of the galaxy, and some feared that fire. Yet humanity didn't boast. The Ghost Fleet wasn't turned into monuments. It wasn't put on display. It was hidden again, deep in the cold places, just in case Elias, now free from war code, took a new role. He became a guide, a teacher, a protector. He built schools across systems, shared Earth's history with honesty, both the beauty and the mistakes, because he understood something most didn't. That peace only survives when truth is remembered. Back on Earth, in a rebuilt city called Unity, people gathered at a new monument. It was not made of gold or steel. It was made of stone and soil, and in the center stood a single child, carved from black crystal, holding a doll, a symbol of the first message, of the moment the galaxy woke up. Every year on that day, humans and aliens stood together in silence, not to celebrate war, but to remember the price of peace. Captain Lena Cole retired from the fleet. She planted trees in the places where bombs once fell. Children often asked her about the war. She never gave them the full story. Only one line: "We burned once, but we chose not to burn others." Admiral Monroe passed away quietly in his sleep. His ashes were scattered in the stars above Earth, where his family once lived and where humanity had begun again in the end. The galaxy didn't just survive the fire. It was reshaped by it. And though the stars would never forget what humanity had done, they also never forgot what humanity had chosen. Not domination, but justice. Not fear, but unity. Not silence, but peace. A message was engraved at the edge of Earth's orbit, carved into an eternal satellite. It drifted across space for all to see. Here lived a world that fell, but rose again, not as rulers, but as guardians. And so the galaxy turned, wiser, stronger, still flawed, but no longer afraid to speak, because one species had shown them the way. Not through power, but through pain. Not through weapons, but through memory. And long after ships rusted, long after stars dimmed, the story of Earth would still be told, not because of how it burned, but because of how it healed. And that story shook the stars.